Hey folks, welcome back to another video. You join me and the boy as he comes down the hill up there on our little dog walk today. I'm not working, so I've got to take him for a stroll. Not much of a chore though, really, is it? I thought I'd just show you the village I live in while I'm here. I used to live on the high street here. These days I live up in the woods out of sight. Nice spot though. Nice views, as you can see, down to the river, little campsite down there. The lake, Whitworth, Snowdon up in the distance. It's a nice spot, I love it. It's nice to be a little bit out of Llanberis, so a bit away from, say, hustle and bustle. It's all relative to North Wales, isn't it? But it's still close to loads of climbing and everything. It just feels like a little bit more peaceful. I love being able to walk up on the hill straight from the house as well. That's really cool. Today's video is a question I got asked loads, and I reply to all the emails I get eventually. It takes me a while sometimes, but I thought I'd just do a little chat to the camera about this particular subject, as someone messaged me the other day. It's quite an in-depth subject, really. I suppose it's hard to give a real short answer to it, so that's where I thought the video would come in, save me typing out loads of emails. It's about whether people are too old to change career and come into the outdoor industry. And I guess there's probably more to that question than it at first seems. The short answer is no. I doubt people are too old to come into the industry. But what I'll do is I'm just going to walk up a little bit higher, put the camera down somewhere so I don't get a tired arm as I'm walking along holding the camera at full stretch in front of me. Before I answer the questions, it is worth noting this will be quite a waffly video. It's just that kind of subject, really, isn't it? The first part of the question is not too waffly though, or the first part, if you like. Am I too old to come into the outdoor industry? I take the first part of that as being, am I too old to get qualified? Well, that's almost certainly a no. Someone passed their winter ML this winter in their 70s, and all sorts of ages past their regular mountain leader and mountaineering climbing instructor as well, which is the one that I use to take people multi-pitch climbing, teach the lead climbing, sea cliff climbing, all that kind of stuff. So the age won't be a barrier to that. Your body might be. I've just walked up the hill here limping a little bit because one of my knees gives me a bit of grief from tendonitis, and I guess I put that down to spending all my life plodding around the mountains here. It's really important to look after yourself, isn't it? I'll try and drop in a few of my words of wisdom, if you like. I think I'm old enough now to say words of wisdom. I see a lot of young instructors coming into the industry and doing really well, and sometimes though the problem is they'll often boast about doing 28 days in a row or something like that, and I just cringe a bit when I hear it, because I was guilty of that a little bit when I was younger, not quite to that extent. But your body is just so important, isn't it? Especially in this industry where you are reliant upon being able to walk up that mountain or climb that route. Look after yourself, take some days off. Your body will thank you for it, but your mind will as well. It's going to be so much better for your mental health, and you'll be more rested and give better days to your clients. Excuse me, put my sunnies on. Suddenly got really sunny for a moment or two. Probably the cloud will come again in a second. But it's so important to look after yourself. It really is. I can't stress that enough. That question, really, the qualifications, they're the most straightforward bit. I'm not saying they're easy, because they're not. They take a lot of time and effort to get those qualifications. There's nothing special about me, and I think it's probably fair to say about anyone else who's got these qualifications. All we've done to get these qualifications is put a lot of time and effort in, and enjoyed whatever it is as well, be it walking in the mountains or doing multi-pitch climbing, whatever it is for the qualification we're working towards. Anyone can achieve it. If you're watching this, I'm pretty sure, 99.9% sure, you can achieve it too, as long as you really want it and you've got the time to give to it. I think a lot of the time when people ask me the question, what they're kind of getting at is it possible to make a living from the outdoor industry when you've got mortgage, kids to look after, loans for a car, whatever it might be? That's the trickier bit, isn't it? Because obviously I don't know how many bills you've got to pay. I can give you an idea of the wages though, in a freelance sense. I don't work at centres anymore. When I first started in the outdoor industry, I worked at an outdoor centre, £40 per week, food and accommodation included, but the food was, it was passable, but the accommodation was a tent. But it was France, so the weather was a lot better than it is here. It was nice and warm. Flipping loved it, and I'll come back onto it in a minute. Your centres are going to pay more than that, but I'm a little bit out of touch, if I'm honest. So I can give you the idea of freelance wages. If you're at the kind of what I will refer to as the entry level qualifications, and for around here they are kind of entry level, the mountain leader qualification and the rock climbing instructor qualification. It seems like every man, woman and dog living around here has those qualifications as a base level. For those kind of days work where you might be taking a group up a big hill area with her, or taking a group climbing at Lion Rock behind me, you're probably in the region of £150 per day, something like that. Might be a touch more, might be a touch less, but as a ballpark figure, something like that. Don't forget, you've got tax to come out of that, deductions, you've got fuel to pay for, insurance to pay for, all your kit to pay for. You're normally from a centre be given stuff, but in terms of your personal kit, so it's not like always 150 straight in your pocket, is it? But it gives you an idea. If you go the next level up, maybe in my world that's mountaineering and climbing instructor and winter ML, you're probably looking about £175 to £200 per day, again something in that region, on a freelance basis. If you're working for yourself, you can charge a bit more, can't you? There's some research to be done there. You can look at my website, jbmountainskills.co.uk. That's got all my prices on there, so you can kind of work backwards from that, can't you? So I worked at an outdoor centre, or various outdoor centres, when I first got into the industry, and that was a great apprenticeship. I learnt so much from it. I had a great time, but the most important thing was I learnt tons, right? I learnt how to deal with people a lot, because I did it straight out of school at the age of 18, but also how to deal with them in the appropriate terrain, be it on the crag or on the mountain, when they might be a bit stressed, cold, wet, fearful of whatever the activity is, because that's quite different to like working in a shop where you might be dealing with people and be really good in terms of customer services and all that kind of thing, but the whole atmosphere, the whole world is a little bit different, isn't it? That's not to say though that those skills aren't transferable. You could be from any other industry, couldn't you? And that might have some transferable skills. I mean, it might not have many, but it might have some, and you've got to take the positives, haven't you? Some people coming into this world, they may be a ski instructor, a snowboard instructor. Well, that's great experience to bring along. There's going to be so many similarities, more similarities than differences really, isn't it? Just the terrain is going to be a little bit different, but I'm sure you'll have a lot to bring in. And it's worth noting that a massive part of this job is being a people person and really enjoying that as well. The quality instructors I see out and about working are people. That's a funny thing to say. I should give some thought to how I say things sometimes. Getting the qualification, that's the one thing, like I say, quite straightforward. And being a safe instructor, actually that's quite straightforward as well. There's plenty of those out and about all over the UK. There's a lot less instructors who are not only safe, but are really flipping good at their job as well, and can enthuse people and get them excited and teach them really well. I don't really like seeing bad teaching, because if you get these qualifications, it's almost guaranteed you can teach, but teach well, that's a very different thing, and that requires a lot of further learning and a lot of practice as well. That's where kind of serving that apprenticeship comes into it all. So I worked with kids 40 quid a week, and have come through to doing some quite exciting work, maybe guiding dreamer white horses or teaching people to have their own adventures, whatever it might be. And I've done all the building blocks up to that as well. Sometimes I see people coming straight in and trying to do that high level stuff, and often, not always, but often they're a bit lacking in certain areas because they haven't served some sort of apprenticeship on their way through. I think it's really important as an instructor to be able to leave your ego behind and be a bit humble about things, and realise that you're going climbing, in this example of mine, for your two people that you're teaching. You're not going climbing for your own benefit. That's what you do in your own time. You're going climbing as a means of teaching and stuff like that. It's all about those paying customers, not you or me, as I'm pointing at myself. It's really worth bearing that in mind. I think that gets missed a lot of the time by certain people. So when you are thinking am I too old to come into the industry? It is worth thinking about why you want to be in this industry. It's flipping great. I absolutely love it. Wouldn't swap it for many jobs. I say many jobs. I'm sure there'd be a few I'd swap it for. But I really do love it. It's worth giving that some thought, okay? Because if you want to do it because you love climbing E4s, well, your work probably isn't going to involve climbing E4s, especially at the lower levels, as I say, the entry levels. You're probably going to be doing minimum amount of climbing and the sort of the fun stuff in that regard. So you've got to enjoy what you do, mostly because of those people that are coming along with you. Yeah. So, decided that you're not too old to get the qualification. The daily rate is okay, you're happy with that, but you've got to get enough of those days, haven't you? Serving that apprenticeship like I did, as well as learning lots, it gets you lots of contacts, doesn't it? And a really good strong CV of why someone should employ you. That's the tricky bit, is coming into being a freelancer fresh off the street from another industry, is why should someone employ you? And that's down to you, isn't it? You've got to find your little niche, find out what you're really good at, and put those days in as well. Even if it's on a freelance basis, you might not be particularly excited by the thought of taking groups up that hill over there, but sometimes it's a means to an end, isn't it? It doesn't mean it's not enjoyable. I did loads of that kind of work, not so much there, but like D&V work, for example. I did really enjoy it, but it was always a means to an end to doing the kind of work I do now. So it's worth giving that some thought, isn't it? Getting those days can be tricky. It is kind of seasonal work to some extent. The majority of the work for most people is somewhere roughly March to October, November. Those 3 or 4 winter months, they're a bit harder until you get the qualifications like Winter ML, or perhaps you've got something else you fall back on, teaching, being a ski instructor and going off to the Alps or wherever it might be. But getting those days, that is definitely the tricky part. So being good at networking and all those kind of things is going to be useful. Or making your own work. I'm self-employed, got my own business, so that's one avenue you can go down, isn't it? And it's easier to go down that route these days, social media and stuff like that. Again, loads of work, but if you're good at it and enjoy that, then that's definitely an avenue to go down. Is the industry saturated? I don't think it is fully saturated, but it's not far off. There's a lot of people with these qualifications, loads of them. So why is someone going to employ you? What are you bringing to the party that makes you more employable? For me, that's making a name for yourself by getting out working and doing a really good job every single day. You do a really good job, and then all those people know, oh, he or she, they're flipping great. Yeah, definitely. I always get really good feedback from them. That by far is the most tricky part. So is it doable to have that career change? That it really is, like I say, an impossible one for me to answer. Is it a possibility? Yes. Will it be a lot of work for you? Yes, absolutely. Depending on what industry you're coming from, it could well be a big pay cut as well. What have you got to fall back on? Have you got those savings? Have you got that other job, like say supply teaching or whatever? It's such an individual, personal thing that it's hard for me to answer, but hopefully that's given you a few little things to think about. It is very unlikely you're too old to get those qualifications. It is very unlikely you're too old to go and get work doing it. But it will be a lot of effort to go and get that work, to network and all that kind of stuff, like I've said. Please do fire away with any questions in the comments below. I shall answer as best I can. And if you're watching this as an instructor, fire some of your top tips in there, because that might be useful as well. Things like perhaps joining the Facebook page Freelance Outdoor Instructors. That will give you a bit of a flavour for wages and how much work is out there, because that's probably the biggest individual page for work, not just freelance work, but all sorts of outdoor work on there. And also, I'm talking here about climbing and mountaineering stuff. The more qualifications you've got, the more employable you are. Get those kayaking ones, those mountain biking ones, whatever else it is that you're into, it's all going to make you more employable, isn't it? That's something I struggled with a bit earlier in my career, because I was focused purely on the climbing and mountaineering side of stuff, really, because that's what I particularly enjoyed. I'm a big believer in loving what you do. So if you want to be really successful, all that stuff I've mentioned already, but just be dead keen on climbing, mountaineering, or whatever your chosen activity is. Anyway, I'm more waffle. click the like button, smash the subscribe button, find us on Insta, find us on Facebook. I put all sorts of random stuff on those pages, so they might be of interest. But as always, the support, massively appreciated. It continues to blow my mind, it really does. As always though, thanks very much for watching. More videos coming up very soon.